I finished up on all the videos I really had to do, and now I'm going to get into something completely different. I'm going to start doing commentaries on current events, the things that are happening every day and are being commented on by people all around the world, podcasters, streamers, uh, people just posting videos on this stuff. I'm not gonna read scripts this time. I've made up a few cards with points definitely want to cover, but I'm going to be talking about this off the top of my head and out of my ass, uh, and I hope you get something out of it. I'm gonna I'm gonna make these commentaries based on the criteria that I've used in these earlier videos, especially the global cartel and Trump. And Trump I want to start out with because he's becoming more and more dangerous and deluded, it seems to me. He's an outright retard who thinks he's king. And his father, like we saw earlier, reared him as, quotes, king and, quotes, killer. And that's what Trump thinks he is. But he's ignorant. He doesn't know shit. He can't read, at least on a very minor level. He doesn't listen to anybody except the last guy he talked to. And if the guy's got any money, he's a little more influential than ordinary you and me. You can look at his cabinet meetings in the Oval Office, and everybody around the table is just kissing his ass and makes him feel like he's God Almighty, but he's not. He's essentially a clown in a blue suit. And, well, one thing I'd say about his suits, his tailor must be a genius because he makes, I don't see how Trump could look any better than he does because he's fat and old and tired and overweight and sick. He's a mess, man, and people kiss his ass. Maggots, I can't understand that, other than the fact that Americans have been so dumbed down over the last 30 or 40 years in schools, and we're being run now by 7th and 8th graders. That's the only thing I can figure. He has no charisma that I can see. He's got no plan. I don't know who's running him. He's been chosen by Satan, Lucifer, the devil himself. Chabad Lubavitch are Pharisees. That's Satan worshiping right there. And maggots think he's a Christian. I don't understand how stupid they can be. But ignorance, of course. But ignorance is not bliss, people. And you're going to find that out. We're heading for some very tough times, I would say, judged on my reading of the cartel, especially the financial side of it, what I call the Frankfurt Combine, headed by the Rothschild family, who are now way back in the background. They withdrew from the London Bullion Market Association in '04. And it used to be that the price fixing for precious metals, especially gold, silver, platinum, were conducted in boardrooms in N.M. Rothschild and Sons, Nathan Myers' old place, in London, the city of London, the corporate city of London, which is the richest square mile in the world. It's where the stock exchange is, and the Bank of England, and blah, blah, blah. All the big merchant banks were there, and are still there as far as I know, and all the big trading outfits. Anyway, Trump is connected to these people. In fact, Rothschild bailed him out in one deal years ago. A guy named Wilbur Ross, who worked for Rothschild in New York, helped bail him out of one of his deals. Trump, I don't know how Trump got the reputation that he's some kind of financial business genius, because he's not. He's been bankrupt at least 6 times that I read, and convicted of felonies, of fraud, etc., numerous times. The only thing I can figure is that the mainstream media, owned by the Frankfurt Combine and the other owners, are covering for him, protecting him. If you don't see it in their mainstream media, it didn't happen. And they're covering up for him. Fox News has a reputation of being in his back pocket. But he gets away with all this crap. He's not opposed by anybody, not anybody in his cabinet, not by anybody in Congress, not representatives or senators, because I read early on that each representative and each senator has been assigned a babysitter or minder by either the AIPAC, which is American Israeli Political Action Committee, or Anti-Defamation League, ADL, or SPLC, somebody from the Southern Poverty Law Conference, the old Morris Dees outfit. And he's been run out of it, supposedly, for his shenanigans against women. Anyway, that's why there is no opposition from Congress. There is not much opposition in the courts, because the cartel owns the courts as well. The last figures I saw were 4 or 5 of the Supreme Court justices are Catholic, either outright Jesuit or maybe Knights of Columbus, Opus Dei, that kind of thing, but subservient to the Jesuits, because I regard it as the Roman Jesuit Church now because of their control of the church for centuries. And the other 4 are Pharisees or Judeo-Pharisees. So he is protected from a lot of his shenanigans by the court rulings. That seems to be changing a little bit over the last week. We'll have to see. We'll have to see about that. But he's getting away with doing all this crap that's anti-constitutional. But when you stop and think about it, that's part of his job too, is to destroy what's left of the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights, so that he can bring in the Pharisee Noahide laws, which will wind up killing all Christians, most Gentiles, because of the 7 Noahide laws. Christians, as I have pointed out, already are criminals. They break the Noahide law against idolatry, because Christ is an idol, Christ is an idolater, And every symbol of Christianity is an idol. And the penalty for breaking any of the Noahide laws is decapitation. So Trump has something like 175 billion. That's the highest figure I've seen yet from his big, beautiful bill and all that bullshit. For ICE, his own private army, I suspect. He's not going to have to go through the National Guard or the United States military or any of that. He's going to have his own private army, is the way it looks like to me. And you can already see what those guys are doing with immigrants and supposed immigrants. And the FBI is a kind of a private army for him now. Look what they did to Bolton, John Bolton. I never cared too much for the guy, but I didn't think he was any sort of anti-American. But that is Trump for you. I don't think Trump has any real plan or any real ideas or any real program. It's just whatever pops into his head at any one time, and he goes full bore stream of consciousness with it. And his cabinet goes along with him. It's difficult to understand. It's hard to know whose bitch Trump is right now, just like Vance is Peter Thiel's bitch. And so part of the system doesn't give a damn whether Trump is gone or not. They got Vance coming in, and he will do what he's told, just like Trump is doing. But Trump sees himself as the chosen one, and he is. He was chosen by Satan himself. Because the cartel dudes are Satanists, Satan worshippers. And the flunkies are as well. They fall into line, or they're gone. So there's no real opposition to anything he wants to do yet. Like I say, that appears in this past week maybe changing. We'll have to see about that. But he is connected, and there's no doubt about it. And he's doing his job by distraction. Epstein files are still there, still alive, and everything he's doing is trying to distract attention away from that. The problem is he craves attention. He is so needy for attention and approval and flattery that that's the way to manipulate him, and everybody seems to know that. So we'll have to see about him. Like I wrote in that Trump video, he's a pimp, and he's third generation pimp. And I kind of feel sorry for the guy, because he's, in some of these last YouTube videos I saw, he was talking about, it was implying he was dying and he was worried about going to heaven. You can forget about that, buddy, as far as I'm concerned. Satan worshipers don't get into heaven from what I understand. So, burn in hell, pal. The next thing I want to cover for some time is the Russia-Ukraine war that's going on right now. Now that started about 3 years ago, and those 3 eastern provinces of the Ukraine voted to join Russia. And Putin made moves into those provinces to take them into Russia, and then he stopped. And I had trouble from then on understanding why he did not Schwarzkopf the entire Ukrainian infrastructure, just like Schwarzkopf did when we went into that disastrous war in Iraq. He bombed the hell out of everything. And I did not understand why Putin did not do the same thing. Take out the roads and the highways and the bridges and the airfields and the intelligence agencies and the factories that built all their weapons and so on. He could have stopped that war in a week, probably, had he done that. Because Ukraine would have had no way to bring in armaments to fight Russia. And so that war would have been over a long time ago. And I could not figure out why. And then, about 2 or 3 weeks, a month later, I saw on the archives of Rense.com, that's RENSE.com, a video from Russia from a Jewish dude saying that Putin was the best friend that the Jews in Russia had. And I said, oh, there it is right there. And I thought initially he was a Shabbos goy. You know, the guy that looks after the Jews on Shabbos, on Sabbath. Because the laws against the rules in the Talmud in Tractate Shabbat are very strict, and you can be executed for breaking the laws on the Sabbath, which is what Yeshua did any number of times in the old days, and the Pharisees hated him for it, and that was one of the charges against him that enabled them to execute him, to murder him. So that's what I thought he was. And then I saw later that he is Chabad Lubavitch, just like Trump and Netanyahu. And Zelensky is also Pharisee or Judeo-Pharisee. He's a faggot. And used to be a comedian, I guess. I used to call him the Jack Ruby of Ukraine, because I thought that was his role in the whole thing. Either that or... Anyway, so we came down to that then. So they're all... And I knew from the get-go, but it never occurred to me consciously, that the cartel, the global cartel, owns the whole world, the whole globe, all the people, the assets, the nations, governments, flunkies, you name it, they own it. If it's of any importance, whatever. They own 56 of the central banks around the world. I saw that figure online. You can look it up and find it yourself. So they control Trump, Putin, Zelensky, Netanyahu. They control all these guys. So I figured from that Putin had orders not to Schwarzkopf Ukraine. There were other motives. Putin initially said that he did not do that because he wanted to minimize deaths in Ukraine and Russia. But now the figures come out that some 1,800,000 Ukrainian citizens and soldiers have died in that war, and the last figure I heard of Russian soldiers was less than 150,000, which may or may not be true. Anyway, how's that working out for you there, Pooty Poot? Which is what Dub called him years ago. But anyway, deaths have not been minimized at all. And now it looks like that Putin is starting to open up against, really open up against Ukraine. We'll see. But they're getting shot at a lot too with drones, even in Moscow. So, who knows how it's going to end? Trump thinks he's in charge. Until this last episode in Alaska, everything I'm seeing right now says that Trump got played in Alaska, big time. But he's always been a Russian asset for years. Putin was a lieutenant colonel in the KGB. And after 1991, when the Soviet Union supposedly went down, he moved to St. Petersburg, I think, and became the mayor of St. Petersburg. And then Yeltsin appointed him director of the FSB, which is the successor to the KGB. So Putin was always highly connected, probably through the Chabad-Lubavitch order, which is owned by the Frankfurt Combine. And Rothschild has owned Russia since 1917 revolution. So Putin is a Rothschild flunky, just like Trump, just like Netanyahu, just like Zelensky, probably Xi Jinping in China, and North Korea, doubtful, but Japan, yeah, Japan's always has been a flunky since the Second World War. Canada, the Prime Minister of Canada now was Bank of England, so he's a Rothschild flunky. Macron of France worked for Rothschild, I understand. So he's a flunky. I would think, I have not done the background on all these other guys. Starmer and Merritz and this guy out of Finland now, Stubbs or Shubs or whatever his name is. And the European Union is just like the UN. You don't vote on them guys, they get appointed. So they're subservient as well as the UN and all the guys there and gals. So the cartel controls all of these outfits. And these flunkies do what they're told or they're gone. And I can't understand why they're letting Trump get away with the same thing that they killed Kennedy for. Unless it is he's doing exactly what they want him to do. I mean, he's letting U.S. Steel, which around 1900, 1910, was the gem, the jewel of American industry. It was put together by Schiff and Morgan and Carnegie and Schwab and Gates. And also he's fooling around with trying to get Powell out of the Federal Reserve System. He's chairman of the New York Fed, which controls all the other branches. And it's owned by the Combine and the cartel. And he's also fooling around with the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, which is the tax collector for the Fed, for the Rothschild combines. So I can't understand why yet, I don't understand it yet, why they are allowing him to fool around with that stuff. We'll find out down the road. Now, what else we got here? Here we go. So you tell me what's going on. Oh, another reason why he did not Schwarzkopf Ukraine was to bleed NATO and the U.S. of money and arms. And you can see that right now. America, old Trump said the other day he's not going to give Ukraine, Zelensky, any more arms. He's going to sell them to NATO and let NATO give them to him. So there you go again, divide and rule. That's part of it as well. And this whole Russia-U.S. controversy fight has been phony as hell from the get-go. Both sides are owned by the Combine, the cartel. And they do whatever they're told. And the appearance of arms races and wars and the like are fronts to make money and to confuse the people and to create fear and division. And that's the Pharisee prime rule, is divide and rule. And that's what they're doing. So we'll have to stay tuned, and I'll be back with this more than likely, because some of that stuff still does not make sense to me. But well, it'll come clear. Then we want to get into the U.S., Israel, and Gaza. The first thing to understand about that is that the current citizens of Israel and all Pharisees and Judeo-Pharisees, for that matter, have absolutely no right to any of the lands in Palestine. They are from Khazaria, which is Ukraine, or they're from West Africa if they're Sephardic Jews. The Ashkenazim came out of Khazaria, Ukraine, converted by their king Kagan to Judaism because he did not want his people to be subservient to Rome, Church, or Islam. So he chose Judaism as the best bet, and they were glad to have him. But anyway, that is where the Ashkenazic Jews, which rule and control us, are primary actors in the cartel. They own us. They own the assets. And you had better get used to the idea that you will own nothing and you will be happy. You think the U.S. dollar is money. It ain't. It's debt, like I've talked about before. So, the cartel owns the U.S. and Israel, and Trump will do whatever he's told to provide arms and assistance to the Israelis. And he thinks that he's going to be a big deal in Gaza with another Trump Tower and golf courses and all that crap. And he may do it. It depends on what the owners want. But the whole idea of the land of Israel Greater Israel, the land from the river to the Euphrates, is garbage. My own feeling is that Israel, the state of Israel in Palestine, is on its last legs. I don't know that it'll survive. I don't feel that it will. I think the cartel has given up on them. They don't need them anymore as a divisive factor in the Middle East to protect Suez and to protect their water routes to the Far East. And there are extensive gas and oil fields between Gaza there and Cyprus. And you don't hear anything about that at all. I've seen references early on, but nothing in the last few months. And who's that going to belong to? To the cartel, of course. So why Gaza now? Why so much genocide? But it's not genocide, really, to the Pharisees. It's a duty. To kill Gentiles is a duty. When the Pharisees were in subservient positions centuries ago, they kowtowed. That's what they're supposed to do. In a subservient position, they're to kowtow and to get along and to make money best they can. But when they're in power, no mercy. None. And that's what's going on right now. It's not really genocide to a Pharisee, to Netanyahu, and he pretty much says the same thing, and that guy Ben Gvir. Kill them all, burn them out. That is really a duty, a mitzvah, under Pharisee law to kill Gentiles, because Gentiles are not humans, according to their ideology. Scientifically speaking, they are monkeys just like everybody else. Descendants of black Africans who migrated out of Africa a couple, maybe 50,000, 60,000 years ago and spread throughout the world. So they are essentially, physically, they are black African Gentiles, monkeys, the very thing that they say they hate the most, which is karma, justice. So they are killing the women and children first, because the women bear the next generation of terrorists, they call them. And the kids are this current generation of terrorists. They will grow up and kill Pharisees. But I suspect, like I said, I suspect that Israel is going down. I think they will disappear because they're not needed anymore. They're not necessarily. They're red just like everybody else. Replaceable, expendable, disposable. And they're not really needed anymore. And people around the world hate them for what they're doing to the Palestinians, to the Gazans, and the West Bankers. And rightly so. But since the cartel owns everybody, their resistance so far has been very light and very limited. Just mainly bullshit more than anything. Nothing's happening in the UN and won't. Nothing will happen in Europe and won't. Until it becomes clear that that's what the owners want. Once that happens, Israel's future is pretty much limited. And their doomsday weapon will be probably disarmed. That's my thinking on the whole thing. Now we come around to the Roman Church and royalty in England, in Europe, the European royal family, of which the Brit monarch has almost always been, has been the ruling family for the last couple, 300 years. And it looks like to me that both William and Leo XIV, the Pope, are going bricks. You don't hear much of that anymore now. Trump doesn't have a clue what the BRICS is anyway. And this de-dollarization that you may be hearing about is not warfare. It is to us, because they're refusing to bow down and worship the dollar, which is on its way out. Anybody can see that. The debt we have cannot be paid. And it probably won't be allowed to be, whatever the word is, rejected, crushed, disowned. We will have to pay that off, you and me. So, from what I've gotten from looking at some of the videos online about Leo XIV, I wrote down a couple of quotes here that he said in a speech the other day. Politics must serve people, not the reverse. Trump's language is often polarizing and forceful. Power should be at the service of the weakest. Does that sound like Trump? Not a chance. Trump worships money and the power that money will bring him, the temporal power that money will bring him. Because he's bred like everybody else, replaceable, expendable, and disposable. And you can see that in his very physicality. But that's the way it sounds to me. The cartel is shifting from the West and the U.S. to what they're calling the global South and to the Far East. China is the future. That's the way it looks to me. And that was decided years ago. One of the first signs of that was when Kissinger went to China under Nixon. And Kissinger was definitely a Rothschild man, born and bred. And Clinton, there are all kinds of allegations that Clinton gave away nuclear secrets to the Chinese. In fact, there are stories that go back to World War II when FDR allowed shipments of uranium-235 to be flown from Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana to Russia. You know, that's nothing new. I mean, it's both sides against the people. That's the way it goes. So it looks like to me that everything is shifting south and east. The global South and the Far East. They are already setting up their own currency system. They're not warring against the dollar. They're just not using it. They're just avoiding it. And without China buying our debt, they're selling our debt now. Everything I see, the Japanese are crying, and they're one of the biggest holders of our debt, and they're just brain dead, it seems to me, if they don't sell it and support their own economy, because they're right there at China. They're going to be part of China. I mean, it's right there. And Great Britain is another big holder of our debt now. That surprised me too. So if these people sell our debt, we are in deepest doo-doo. And you think the money you put in your bank is yours? You're wrong. I covered that before. You have just become an unsecured creditor to the bank, and your money is theirs. They have a certain responsibility to let you have it back to pay bills and taxes. But if the Fed shuts down the system, which it's going to do, I suspect, then your money is at high risk of being bailed in. You better be looking at that. I've looked at some of it, and I'm not sure how to get around it, because they're not going with the CBDC, the central bank digital currencies. They're going with these public-private stable coins, bitcoins, blah, 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 until the power's turned off. Everything in the financial and economic today is digital. From stocks and bonds to derivatives, options, puts and calls, blah, blah, blah. It's all digital. All it's going to take is just push the button and it's gone. So use your own judgment about that, as you have to about everything. And if you go with the crowd, don't come whining to me that you didn't know, that nobody told you. Oh, what a whine. I didn't know, nobody told me. They're not going to tell you. Because everybody that could tell you don't know, either don't know, or if they know, they won't tell you. Because they're part of the cartel in some way. So, goodbye for now. Best of luck to you. And may the good Lord bless us all, one and all.